Bill Martin up there. But anyway, so there's the key in this. It's so scary. So you gotta think, how am I going to stay in the game? You then are crossing across Saginaw Bay, and it in a lot of ways can have its own weather pattern. Typically, if you had the beat and somehow got you forced in the shore, for some reason or another, if you look at the very end of the bay when it starts to turn up the lake, there is no wind there at night under any conditions, anywhere, whether it's blowing 20 anyplace else, it just isn't there, so you can't be there. And it doesn't matter if you have to sail 90 degrees of the course, you can't be within 6 miles of shore there, or you'll still be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. As you go up the race course from there, you're going to progressively go away from the shore no matter what course you had. We're through the part of the race where there's any decisions to do. You just go as fast as you can. You get around that mark, and once again you have to decide, do I engage with the Michigan shore? We don't have to be repetitive. It's the same rules that you're going to have drift coming out of the southwest. If you have a northeast breeze, there's going to be no wind inshore. You have any west component, there'll be more, so that you make your choice. And then, of course, you go into the straits, and a lot of things can happen there. You can't talk about it here, but experience will maybe guide you on where to be there. Anybody else? Paul sailed this shore course for 20 years. How do you get up it?
Harbor Beach. You gotta watch out for Harbor Beach. That's all I can tell you. I got smoked there once and never did it again. Otherwise, he was right. You don't go in along the Michigan side. And then otherwise, as I said, it's just a drag race. You know, that's all I can tell you about that race, that course. Sometimes you might hit different fronts where it's just what we call a restart, right on that Alpena, where it just dies. Everyone just sails up to each other and we start the race over again. And
Right?
Well, you know, these guys apparently been in the lead in all the races they've ever been in. You also, you know, in a race with a turning mark, in the way the technology is, you know exactly how far behind you are when you get to these turning marks, and sometimes you're going to be behind. And you know, a couple of times we've just said, what the hell, and gone on a flyer, and you know, the boats in front, they can't go on a flyer, they got to protect the front, and so, you know, it's important to know when you're losing and to take the loser's gambit, because, you know, whether you come in 4th or 14th, it's still losing, you know. And it works. Every once in a while it works. You just do something zany when you're behind and you never know, you know.
Al, talk to me about sail selection for the race. What planning goes into that? You might want to put that chart up in the process, but
I think that long distance races in general, whether it's this race or the Chicago race or the Trans-Superior race or Trans-Area or anything like that, you end up having to reach a lot more than you do on inshore races or windward lured races. And so many people, when you have limited budgets as to what you can spend your money on sails, have a tendency to spend their money on upwind and downwind sails, when often sails like jib tops and asymmetrical spinnakers and staysails and things like that win Mackinac races for you all the time. This happens to be a sail chart that is somewhat unsophisticated, that was original sail chart for Frank Kernsburg, Corinthia, which is a real helpful thing on board for you to make, because how many times when you're the owner, do they wake you up in the middle of the night and say, should we have the jib top up, or, you know, should we have the spinnaker up? Well, it's real easy for the crew to look across the left-hand column and see the wind angles, and then look across the top and see the wind speed and follow it down to what sail you ought to have up. And you start out with these charts, and you keep refining them and refining them and refining them. Bob, let's push to the next one. There we go. Now we've broken this thing down virtually by every 5 degrees, and every color is a different sail. And after the longer you sail, you keep refining this until you always know when the right sail ought to be up.
but the column on the left is true wind angle. Every 5 degrees, and across the top is true wind speed, and you do the matrix, and there you are. Saves a lot of thinking at the time.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
These guys are my sail makers, which is real nice. Really good too, by the way. I'm not here to sell sails or anything, but code 0. That's all I'll say.
Well, and the other thing, most of these races, and Al, you probably know the percentages, but most of these long distance races are reaching races, and asymmetricals and jib tops, and I mean that's, in the boats I race against, they don't have asymmetricals and jib tops, and all of a sudden you're going a knot and a half faster than the guy right next to you because he's got a symmetrical sail up or doesn't have a jib top or something like that. It's maybe that's just not as noble a way to win, but it's a win, man.
I just put a chart up on the wall here, and maybe Al can go a little bit more into this, but when I don't have somebody like Pete around to help me, and by the way, I could tell you that the biggest success that I've had is building the crew, that my friends are really good sailors. And, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You get guys like Pete, and you look for areas of expertise. You don't want everybody the same, so you want people that are good at various things. But this is a little bit of a simple diagram, but you certainly don't have to have sophisticated instruments. A calculator can tell you what your best speed made good to the course is. I can tell you, I sailed on a lot of boats where the instruments weren't calibrated all that well. I've got a calculator in my duffel bag. I don't need these fancy instruments. I'll get us on the best VMG to the course, and I'm like Greg, I'm a detuned guy, but we make it work. Go ahead, Al.
Al?
Yeah. Well, I think this concept, maybe for a second, Bob, you could move back to the slides and get those concentric circles
Concentric
coming up.
circles, yeah.
That obviously that we spend a lot of time on weather, but often you don't have much confidence in the weather. I think we all talked like we did. Surely there's some races where you're fairly confident what's going to happen, weather, and it's a big part of your decision process. But when you're not confident, or in a course like the Thunder Bay course, where as soon as you move off the shore, chances are that you're going to be sailing in the same gradient wind as everybody else is, and there isn't going to be an edge getting right or left. The real secret to long distance racing is to try and move up the ladder rung. And what we've done here is taken some concentric circles around the mark. And what you want to do is you want to move from one circle to the next closest circle the fastest you can. So if it's a dead beat and you're 60 miles out and the wind never shifts for the 60 miles, you're better off to keep your boat hard on the wind and sail upwind. Well, how often can you sail 60 miles in Lake Huron and have the wind not shift? So you're a lot better off putting the bow down 3 or 4 degrees, picking up 3/4 of a knot in speed, and really letting the boat go, because that is going to get you to the next circle quicker. And if you want to figure out what is your best speed made good to a mark, it's a pretty simple function, and you don't even need to have much of a math background. It's the cosine of the amount of degrees you are off course times your boat speed. So that if you're wondering, well, if I fall off 5 degrees, I can go 3/10 of a knot faster, you can quickly calculate whether that's a good move or a bad move. You don't need the instruments. As Bob said, when the instruments aren't working, you go down to your duffel bag, you pull the $8 calculator out and make it work for you. So that's the whole concept of this speed made good towards the mark, is you're just constantly trying to get to that circle, because chances are by the time you get to that mark, if you were beating, you're going to be running. If you were on port, you're going to be on starboard by the time you get there, maybe 2 or 3 times in the process. So the real thing to focus on is not aiming at the mark. It is whatever course gets you to the next circle first. And while I'm at it here, I think that we talked about some technical things, and maybe I'll be jumping ahead of Ted, but I really feel the real key to winning the race, this level of intensity. That you basically have to turn it on at the start and keep it on for the entire race. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that we have worked so hard, so